Koe te tui, te te kākā, kuku te kereru, mō te tangākau kia tātou e hui tei nei, a tina ngā mai, aroro hiko mai hoki, koutou e whakarongo ana, e te manu kāhui o kirikiri roa pola, tēnei te mihi atu kia koe hoki, kānui te mihi te aroha, ngā mahi koe, mō te kōpū mani o kirikiri roa, mō te riu o Waikato, tēnei te mihi atu. Koutou e whakarongo mai nei, ara mai, ki te whakarongo ki te nei o ngā hui ātau, o tō mātou rōpū Trust Waikato i tēnei ahi, tēnei mātou e mihi nei kia koutou, kānui te mihi atu kia koe hoki Edgar, ngā kai mahi, ngā kai hoi, puna oranga, tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. Nō reira kānui te mihi, kānui te aroha, tēnei mātou, te mihi nei kia koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Greetings everyone, lovely to have you on board. It is the first time myself and I think the team have held a AGM, a virtual AGM, but that's good. You've got to change with the times. We're prepared. We'll do our best at this AGM. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Tu te ramai nā iwi, tātou tātou e. Tu te ramai nā iwi, tātou tātou e. Whai a te maramatanga, me te aroha, i ngā iwi, kia tapatahi, kia kotahira. Tātou tātou e, tātou tātou e. Nō reira koutou, e hui tahi nei, whakarongo ki ngā kōrero. Ka mutu taku kōrero I rui ngā kupu ki te hunga ko whetūrangitia at this 1 a.m. The two little acknowledgements. Those, the bereaved that have lost to the poor, gone beyond the veil. We farewell those all over our community, Kirikiriroa, Waikato, Aotearoa and the world, return home in peace. I want to acknowledge also the King as he binds and unites people together. Nō reira koutou, tātou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, ka heke. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Tommy, and thank you for your ongoing support and counsel for the Trust and to me personally as well. It is truly appreciated, and thank you. Look, welcome everybody. It's been a confronting week for us all, and we've all heard from our whānau and Kotahitanga of Christchurch and hear them speak of the effects of that terrorist act in March last year and the impact that it's had on their lives. And while we can never experience the pain that they've suffered, let it be known that actually we walk alongside you. I would also like to acknowledge all the community, and it's great to see already in the chat Zoom thing that we're seeing people putting up where they're from and who they are. But I'd like to acknowledge the community response to the COVID-19 crisis that we've also faced. It is my absolute view that the community response saved lives. I don't believe that the work undertaken by the community has yet been truly acknowledged, but in time it will be. And from myself and from Trust Waikato, we do thank you and acknowledge you for all of your work in that time. We have 4 trustees ending their term within the Trust at the next month. Edgar Wilson, our Chair, Alan Chu, Caroline Christian, and Bill Noble are completing their second and final term. And I would like to acknowledge their contributions and efforts over the last eight years. At the board meeting today, we held the formal part of the meeting. So tonight you'll hear from our Chair, Edgar Wilson, and our Deputy Chair, Vicky McLennan, who will talk about the highlights from our annual financial statements. And look, and I acknowledge this is an unusual event. To hold our APM virtually doesn't sit really well with us. It's a time when we like to host our community and connect when we can. As I said, some already are starting to put where they're from and who they are in the chat function, and please, I'd encourage you all to do that so that we can get a sense of who you are and where you're from as well. Also, please use the Q&A facility at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll look at and endeavour to answer those questions, if not all tonight, certainly over the next few days. We will also hear later on from the Chief Executive of Creative Waikato, Jeremy Mayall, and Jeremy will talk through the Kotahitanga inclusivity through creativity initiative coming from the first lockdown earlier this year. And that was a response to the increased racism that parts of our community were experiencing at this time. But one person who is probably now an expert in holding these zuis is our Kotahitanga Hamilton Mayor, Paula Southgate. And Paula, I'd welcome you to the screen as well. Paula, you were elected last year, and I bet that you never imagined any scenario that you would be undertaking the work that you are in the way that you are this year. But one thing that is true, Paula, from our view, is that you remain focused on delivering a better Hamilton, and your commitment to the community is strong and resolute. So at this point, I'd like to welcome you, Paula, and ask you to say a few words.
Thank you. Ko te atua tō tātou piringa ka puta ka ora. Tui e te rangi e tū nei, tui e te papa e takoto nei, tui e te kupu mihi kia koutou, te puna o Waikato, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Good evening, everyone. Dennis and team from Trust Waikato, thank you very much for inviting me to speak very briefly at your AGM, albeit in the Zoom room again. And you're quite right. I don't think anybody can deny how strange and challenging these times have been for our city, but our country, in fact, the world. And 12 months ago, none of us here would have predicted that face masks would be the hot new fashion accessory, or Zoom would replace meetings and in the way they have. We wouldn't have dreamed of closed borders or quarantine hotels. But most importantly, we wouldn't have wished for the additional stress those changes are putting on whānau in our Waikato communities, and we know they are, and you know they are, because you've been right behind them every step of the way. So the world has changed, but here we are. And so, yes, we get on with it, and we do what we can. There are some who say some of those changes are not all bad, and perhaps they're right, because everything leads you to adapt and rise to challenge. But I think it's fair to say we all will admit that the future is still a little bit sobering. So during these times, because I'm a natural optimist, I know that Hamilton is placed better than other cities to withstand the ravages of COVID. But I know that Council itself cannot respond to the challenges we face on our own. We need our city needs people, organisations such as yours, and you are rising up and doing more than you've ever done before, along with many, many of the participants who I can see are attached to this Zoom meeting. Your vision for a vibrant and resilient Waikato communities is more relevant now than it ever has been. And the good news is that your vision and the vision that I have for our priorities as a city are very, very similar. And I'd like to just briefly touch on those if I might. Firstly, I did want to take a moment to say genuinely how thankful we are for what you have done for our city. Within 1 week of going into lockdown, my council announced a comprehensive 12-point recovery plan to help our city rebuild from COVID. One of our absolute priorities was to assist those who needed it the most. And so on top of the 440,000 community grants we make annually, we ring-fenced a further $1 million, which we aligned to the Waikato Community Funders Group. And thank you for the pivotal role that you have played in that group. With your help, overseen by two of my really community-hearted councillors, Councillor Mark and Councillor Kesh, City Council distributed over 550,000 to groups in our city. And I know that the wider fund has done so much more. I would also like to make a special mention of two other pieces of work which I greatly admire. One is your impact investment, And so thank you, by the way, Dennis, for coming to our away day. The councillors really appreciated your perspective on impact investing. The other, of course, is the Waikato Wellbeing Project. And we think that these are outstanding initiatives and will really help drive our region forward. And as you know, wellbeing is very close to my own heart. I wear that on my sleeve, and I won't apologise for that. People and their well-being is first and foremost. No matter how fast and big we grow our city, if people don't thrive, then it is all in vain. So I made it quite clear during my election campaign that my focus is on building better communities. That is my dream, and I know it's very similar to yours. So what's the council doing about that? How do we give that life to that dream? Later this year, we'll be socialising 5 priorities for the city as we start working towards our long-term plan. We're still working on those, so give me some license, but I do want to just tell you about our direction of travel. And I've been meeting with some of our key thought leaders and community leaders to talk about this. And I think this is something through Dennis's involvement, which will be very influencing. We're looking at 5 priority areas. There will be a lot of discussion about what goes into those areas, the detail that sits underneath it. One relates to we want a city that's easy to live in, that people love living in, that offers big city opportunities like jobs, transport, education, but retains that sense of community that our people, and you know this, they value it now more than ever. In fact, look what COVID did to our sense of community. We want a city where people thrive, jobs opportunities, so people have the opportunity to live where they want, and I hope we'll be able to meaningfully contribute to our city. We want a central city that people love to be in. That means a much more vibrant central city in a heart that embraces and nurtures our Waikato River, and we're making some pretty good work on this and seeing some outstanding investments in the CBD that are really exciting. And I was at the AGM of the Hamilton Central Business District Association last night, and it's really quite uplifting to see that despite the challenges of COVID, we go forward and we build a better city, and thanks to Deputy Mayor Taylor for his leadership in that. We want a fun city, and I was talking with Jeremy about this yesterday, and Nancy in fact. We want a fun city where there is lots to do. I want spaces for everyone to enjoy all year round. I want a vibrant art scene, lots of events that are freely accessible to the widest group of people, lots of places to play. And I don't just mean children, I mean we all play and we all connect. One of our staff did a brilliant play strategy which wraps up sport and so much more. Finally, we want a future-focused green city. We've been playing around with the words of that and we're not sure we've landed. But what this means is we want a city that sustains us into the future and is beautiful and green. And I believe this council, well, you don't have to look too far at the members, is more committed than ever to environmental issues. I can't think of one councillor in the present team who doesn't want to genuinely protect our environment for the future of our city. So as I've said, we'll start rolling out and seeking some feedback on these priorities later this year, not too far away, well in advance of any decision making in relation to a long-term plan. Because before we start putting the what, we want to really talk with the community about the why. And you know that this matches very, very well with your wellbeing work, and also the concepts of investing for real impact really start to matter when you think about the why. One of the other promises I made to the community when I was elected was that I'd put people first. This means talking, but it also means listening, because we're stronger and we're more resilient when we do that. So I do look forward to working with Trust Waikato about the priorities of our council, because I think the more closely we become aligned, the more we can do together. And the long-term plan will give us a chance to reset the agenda. Well, we need to reset the agenda because life will not be the same as it was before COVID, no matter which way we look at it. This is a new world. And I'll end there, but look, I just want to say again, we are such an incredibly strong city because of the charitable and voluntary sector and boards like this that put so much effort and time and passion into our city. And, you know, look, I'm very, very grateful for that. And it makes it a really exciting place to be mayor. So yes, I don't really think I would be doing as much of my work on a screen, using whatever words of persuasion I could bring to it. But at the same time, I'm not alone, and I feel very well supported and very well connected. I appreciate it. Thank you for a really good year of work. Thank you for what you did for our community during COVID. Kia ora tātou katoa.
Oh, kia ora, Paula. It's Edgar here. I've got the opportunity to say thank you, and basically I'm saying thank you from my heart because it's quite easy with you and I. We're on the same philosophy in life. I heard coming through from you today, again, partnership, working together, strengthening community. If we're not doing that, what are we about, would be my question. And I think you're answering it with your aspirations going forward. So thank you. You're a good leader for the city, if I may say so, on Zoom, and others can hear it as well. Your positivity helps, and you know, you're just a good attitude that our city needs to keep growing forward. So thank you very much for your kind words and for putting expectations back on Trust Waikato. That's what they need as I'm about to retire. So we just keep it going forward. And I noticed that you also spelled out Dennis by name, and rightly so. I don't overlook his contribution at all. So you two, you've got a job ahead of you, and all the best. So thank you.
Thank you.
I now go to a more of a paper approached part from the Chair's report, but I want to commence by acknowledging Kia ora Tami. I'm going to speak about you later, so don't relax. I also want to acknowledge the board and the staff, and all of those of you who are on Zoom, and those of you who are on Zoom having a look at this in a week's time. You don't know who you are yet. This will be a little bit longer than it normally is, because I would normally say just read the highlights and you know what's in front of you, so go for it. But I'll try and keep things moving. The Trust is in year 4 of a 2017 to 2027 strategic plan. Now, it's not a lock-in plan, it's a live plan, so don't get excited or panic, either way. Basically, the 10-year vision aims to create vibrant and resilient Waikato communities and transformational change. Funny that. That's just what Paul's been talking about. During March, I'm going to have to say it, I'm afraid, the investment performance was impacted by COVID-19. I'll let Vicky talk more about that because finance is her forte. You're right, okay. But don't panic, we have money. So over the past year, Trust Waikato approved 559 grants totaling $13,300,000 towards significant capital, impact and community response projects. Now, when I came on the board, we only had grants. So things have changed significantly in 8 years. I must admit also, when I came on the board, we didn't have as much money either because of global financial crisis. So the world keeps going around. The high priority for staff and trustees has been connecting across the Waikato region through face-to-face community meetings, funding workshops. And to be honest with you, I don't think the bulk of the board have a clue how much of this the staff do, but we do pick it up for osmosis and they're outstanding. And community people tell us that regularly, even if they don't always get the money. During 2019, the Provincial Growth Fund put $12 million towards the regional theatre, the Waikato Regional Theatre. It was extremely helped, of course, by the $15 million that Trust Waikato put up, but more than seed money to get the whole project underway. We're all looking forward to coming to the opening. Trust Waikato is a signatory to the United Nations Principle for Responsible Investment. This is pretty serious stuff, actually, the PRI, which provides international guidelines for considering environmental, social, and governance investment issues. In other words, not investing in ropey outfits. In 2019, Trust Waikato was recognised by the PRI, this is an international United Nations organisation to be one of the world's leading proponents of responsible investment and was included in an international leaders group of just 47 organisations. I reinforce that because that's top end. In January 2019, Trust Waikato started working on establishing an impact investment fund, Te Puna Hapori. And again, a lot of acknowledgement goes to Dennis and the thinking, to say nothing about the work. Designed in close consultation with communities, this fund is a groundbreaking way for progressive investors to effect community-level change by financing large-scale infrastructure projects. Paula knows all about this now because Dennis has talked to her in the committee, so in the council. A COVID-19 response fund of $1 million was established in late March 2020, and most of the $1 million has been granted to groups working on the front line to help many vulnerable children. A couple of things I want to comment here. One was the speed of Trust Waikato to get that money out, and it wasn't just dished out at willy-nilly, it was dished out with purpose. And the other one was the number of people in the wider community who said, oh, I didn't know these people had these problems. Look what COVID's done. Our response was, it's always been there, people. COVID just highlighted it. We have been humbled by the hard work of volunteers and community leaders, and this year in particular. They've worked tirelessly during the year, and most significantly since the COVID-19 pandemic, which hasn't gone away. They have ensured that families, elderly, people and those who are vulnerable have been looked after by ways of food parcels, heating, immunisation and support networks. It's easy to read that out. I have a pretty good example of it in my own life with Kotahitanga Pacifica, but they're only one example of people who've really done the extra mile, 7 days a week. Finally, it has been a testing time for all communities, and the challenges will continue for a long time ahead as the country responds to the very different economic and social reality. But at the same time, it's been extremely rewarding because we've learnt a lot about ourselves. We will continue to work to ensure Trust Waikato is best placed to meet the most urgent community needs to enable positive, long-term change, and we look forward to working across the greater Waikato to help strengthen and sustain vibrant communities. Now, I won't be there to see that, but my goodness, I'll be close by seeing it's done. So either way, my heart lies with it. So I'd like to conclude my report by saying that the Chair's report was formally passed today at the Trust Waikato board meeting, so there's no need for me to move the motion. But I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank you all, and I'm going to hand over to Vicky McLennan, who, as I said to you before, is the doyen of all things finance.
What an introduction. Thank you, Edgar. Kia koutou katoa, ko Vicky McLennan aho. As Deputy Chair of Trust Waikato, it's my privilege to present the financial report for the year ended 31st of March 2020. Perhaps not quite the wild celebration that it was last year, but a very positive report nonetheless, I'm sure you will agree. Just letting you know in advance that copies of the full version of the financial statements are available here at Trust Waikato, should you want to access them, or on our website. And I'm very pleased to be able to report that the auditor has expressed an unmodified audit opinion on the full financial statements, meaning that the statements present fairly the financial performance and position of the Trust and comply with generally accepted accounting practice in New Zealand, the Tier 2 public benefit entities. Can I also clarify that the financial statements as sent to you in the annual report, or as provided in the link to you, are the summarised financial statements, and my comments tonight will refer to them. And please also bear in mind that the Trust's mission is always to invest wisely, to grant effectively, and to be operationally agile, as Trust Waikato's COVID response demonstrated, we believe. In the summarised statement of comprehensive revenue and expenses, investment income is the Trust's primary source of income. So during the year, our investments earned $1.4 million, which is considerably less than the previous year due to the impact of COVID-19 on the Trust's investment. After operating expenses of $4.7 million and grants and sponsorship of $11.7 million, the Trust was left with a total comprehensive revenue and expenses for the year of negative $15.1 million. Not much if you say it fast. However, on a much more positive note, the Trust distributed $11.8 million to the Greater Waikato community over the year, and this included $11.6 million in cash grants. The full list of grants approved is available for viewing on the Trust website, should you wish to. I'm now going to turn to the key figures in the summarised statement of financial position, which is on page 9 if you're looking at the annual report. The Trust started the year with capital of $410 million, and of this, our opening investment portfolio totaled $403 million. The investment earnings of $1.4 million provided a return on investment of 0.25% after fees, compared to the benchmark return of negative 2.1%. Clearly another COVID casualty. The Trust invests in a range of financial assets through selected fund managers and owns 2 properties, Trust House and the main Trust building that we currently occupy. The managed fund investments are in various domestic and international funds, including shares, bonds, property, credit, private equity and infrastructure, reassuring diversity of investments. The investment portfolio stood at $397 million as at the 31st of March 2020. This was a decrease of $7 million due to low investment returns and cash drawdown for grants and Trust expenses. This figure has, of course, rebounded since, I'm pleased to say, but sadly, these statements capture that unfortunate snapshot that was the end of the financial year. Previously, I talked about the total comprehensive revenue and expenses for the year after grants and sponsorship of negative $15.1 million. So what happened to that negative figure, you might ask? Fortunately and wisely, the Trust maintains an investment fluctuation reserve, the purpose of which is to set aside funds for just such periods of low returns to allow the Trust to continue providing grants to the community in hard times. This year, $15.1 million was transferred out of that reserve to cover the negative net position, as described earlier. The investment fluctuation reserve now stands at $50 million, which is at a level considered sufficient to protect the Trust's capital in times of such low returns. Trustees also have a commitment to preserve the Trust capital for the benefit of the Waikato's future generations. It aims to maintain the initial capital, which in 1996 was $169 million. And it maintains that with an adjustment for inflation and regional population growth each year. We call that adjusted initial capital the base capital value. And this year, $9.8 million was able to be added to that base capital value from the investment fluctuation reserve to provide for that inflation and population growth. So the base capital value now stands at $308 million, and the value of the Trust fund is well above that. The grants reserve also sets aside funds for the community impact grants, which are aimed at bringing about the transformational change that have already been mentioned by both Paula and Edgar. The grants reserve remains at 35 million, with commitments of 16.2 million towards upcoming projects. Together, the base capital value of 308 million and the various reserves for investments, grants and land revaluation of 87 million gives total trust funds a value of 395 million. And as I mentioned, it is of course more than that, a few months on from the snapshot. So the message is, be reassured, the trust is in a strong financial position because of its continued financial discipline, even in the most difficult of times. Trust funds have been built up to protect the base capital for future generations, and funds have been set aside to adequately protect the capital in times of low investment returns. And the trust is in a position to continue to provide grants to our community as it has long done so. As with Edgar, the motions relating to the annual public meeting were passed at the Trust Board meeting today. And so I now have the pleasure of inviting you to enjoy with us a video celebrating the tremendous work of the community during the year. Enjoy.
So now we take the opportunity to answer any questions that have come through, and if there are no questions, we're happy to take questions over the next period of time as well. We're just checking these out. I can't see you and I can hear you. Am I connected? Hopefully. Sorry, I can see and hear you, but I can't see myself. I'm the same person. So we're all done on the questions. But we are happy to take questions, as I say, at a later time as well. My time talking is nearly up, so before I do pass on to Jeremy, I do want to acknowledge the team. My team here work tirelessly for the community, especially over that COVID-19 period. Many hours of extra work took place, and you know, without fail, it was all done with a smile and with professionalism as well. And I want to, you know, thank you all for all your efforts. The two that are hiding up the front as well. So now my job is now to pass to Jeremy, and I just want to acknowledge Jeremy as Chief Executive of Creative Waikato. And over the time of COVID-19, we saw increased racism, especially to our Asian communities, and been talking as a community funders group as to what could our response be to that. We fell upon the idea of approaching Jeremy and saying, what could happen in a creative sense? And he came up with a fantastic initiative of which he will show us tonight. But first, we're going to show you a video that details some of this work as well.
We need to push ourselves to go outside and meet the people that we wouldn't normally meet within our communities.
Show courage, show vulnerability, engage with people, whether it's a checkout person at Pack and Save or somebody that you're crossing paths with on the street. Make eye contact, say hello. Is it an opportunity to show some kindness?
The very second that you're ready to listen, there are communities and people who are ready to share. We're so fortunate because we have the opportunity to attend all of these different places and learn all of these different things.
I think that learning the whakapapa of the area where you live and how you came to be here and how other people came to be here is really important in creating empathy and understanding about our shared history.
Find out a little bit about the Kotahitanga and about who were the kings, why they became the king movement, and all about the land confiscations around here.
If you see discrimination, speak up. Be an upstander rather than a bystander.
I think a really easy way to make a difference is to pronounce words other than English correctly.
The organisations that support our migrants and refugees are doing such a great job. We should fund them better so they can help more people.
Let the community aware and see the positive side of diversity. How wonderful to be in a country of inclusions and diversity.
I think many people, they don't know and they are afraid to try and they label the others because they don't know them. So my point is to open the floor for the people to know each other and to make like a bridge between different cultures. In this way we can really flatten the racism in New Zealand in general.
Right. That's me now. Tēnā koutou katoa, called Jeremy Mayall tōku ingoa. Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Jeremy Mayall and I'm here, as Tina said, on behalf of Creative Waikato, the arts development organisation for the Waikato region, to talk a little bit about this project in particular, the Kotahitanga Through Creativity project. I'd like to start by acknowledging Trust Waikato, the board, Dennis and the staff for their ongoing support of the community of the Waikato region and for the work that they continually do to enable transformative change for people, family and their communities. Creative Waikato is one of the capability building organisations for the region, and I'd also like to acknowledge our partner organisations in Sport Waikato and Community Waikato to acknowledge the work that they do. This year has been an unusual one, and it has been inspiring to go through this time together and to work with Holly and Matthew and their teams to see the work that they continue to do in the community. So here, talking about this initiative that's been developed with the support of Trust Waikato and the Community Funders Group, a project that has enabled art and creativity to be used as a means to explore social issues, to examine the world as it is, and to set a vision for what our world and our region and our communities could be in the future. As Dennis said, reports of online bullying and racism were escalating in New Zealand, and they have been for a long time, but over the first half of this year, the situation increased further as the impacts of COVID-19 were felt. There were isolated cases and incidents of racism that were experienced by our diverse community in our region, and we know that the situation should not be representative of the inclusive Waikato that we believe in. So as a response to this, Creative Waikato wanted to utilise the voice and skill of our artists to begin to shape the narrative that will inform, educate, celebrate, and generate powerful conversations about Waikato being an inclusive region where we celebrate our ethnic diversity. Creativity and unity are vital parts of a thriving and innovative society. They're part of our core, and this is true at all times, but especially now. The arts are a vital aspect of the lives of individuals and their communities, and arts and culture can illuminate our inner lives and enrich our emotional world. They help us to define and express ourselves, as well as to engage with each other in our communities. The arts are powerful levers for promoting positive social change, because they function as the conscience of our society and show us that we make the world rather than simply inherit it. The pandemic has certainly caused troubling times, and it's clear that the future holds ongoing economic hardship, stress, fear, and grief. And moving forward, as alert levels continue to change, the creative sector has an opportunity to rebuild our communities and encourage people back into spaces and encourage people to re-examine the way that we work. So as part of this call for to respond to this issue, a call for works was sent out to the Waikato, and we had a huge number of local artists who responded. There's a broad range of art forms, from poetry, film, sculpture, ceramics, painting, printmaking, design, fabric work, among others. And the Creative Waikato team had an opportunity to review all the proposals with the support of Dennis, Tarita and Jenny Nand. And each artist that we selected had responded to the core idea of Kotahitanga in their own individual way, creating different ripples of understanding and ways of addressing and coming to terms with this multifaceted and ongoing issue. It was our hope that the sheer variety of works across multiple art forms would mean that a message of great diversity for people within the Waikato would be presented, and this would encourage them to engage with this message in their own terms. Because we need people to do their bit, to embrace the understanding of all the cultures that are here so that we can collectively flatten the curve on racism. All the works were gathered together in an online gallery, which you can find at kotahitanga.gallery.nz, as well as in a poster format that was delivered through all the community papers of the Waikato region. So we printed 142,000 copies of this poster that showcased all of the artworks and sent them out into the community to encourage them to engage with the website. The gallery features the artworks themselves, as well as short documentary films about the artists and their process unpicking the work. And it unpicks some of the broader kaupapa behind this project, a project that we hope and know will continue to grow, to connect, and to inspire future conversation. There are ways for this to connect with our young people, with people of all communities, and to bring them together to support the inclusive vision that we have for the Waikato. Just before, we've seen one of the artworks. This was created by Dawn Tuffery, who interviewed a number of people from the community to illustrate their responses to this idea, and then she presented that through sand animation. I'd like to encourage everyone who's watching this after this meeting, of course, wait till the end, but then go to the online gallery and take some time to explore the works, view them with your whānau, discuss them, take up the challenge that is set within this work to be an upstander, not a bystander. The impacts of this project are deeply connected to community well-being in all its forms, but with a particular connection to our cultural well-being, as has been discussed by Dennis and by Paula previously. Cultural well-being looks different in our diverse communities and needs to be addressed within different contexts. We must acknowledge the well-being of tangata whenua and understand well-being from a Te Ao Māori perspective as being central to our understanding of well-being in Aotearoa. The value of having a community who engages in creative and cultural practices is wide-ranging. These benefits include benefits for mental and physical health, a greater sense of belonging and social cohesion, improved self-esteem and confidence, transformative educational outcomes, and growing social prosperity. The arts challenge, inspire, and expand our minds. They engage our creativity and allow us to experience the world through someone else's reality. From education to well-being to quality of life, the arts are crucial to our success, health, and happiness, and each generation has its own unique set of challenges, but it's through the arts that we can learn compassion, curiosity, understanding, and critical thinking skills that enable us to address these problems and to actively find solutions. Artistic imagination and creativity are not added bonuses for society. They're not the icing on the cake. They're an integral part of the human spirit and the human aspirations, an essential part of what makes us human. Art thinks about the world in its current state and reimagines the world as it can be. The arts serve as an antidote to times of chaos. They can be a route to clarity. They can be a force of resistance and repair, providing new registers, new languages in which to think. The arts can be a catalyst to effect such change, and I'd like to acknowledge Trust Waikato for entrusting us with bringing this project to life at this time. Thank you.
Well, Jeremy, I'm going to say thank you by saying thank you, because really you put a wonderful challenge out there and a reminder of what Creative Waikato and what your leadership is about. And it's for all times and all occasions. And this last 6 months in particular, but not solely, has brought its demands, but boy, it's brought its rewards as well. So on behalf of Trust Waikato and the wider community, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your team, because you're only as good as your team, I guess.
Definitely.
And it's always a pleasure and a privilege to be associated with the activities Creative Waikato is involved in. So personally and collectively, a big thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, we're nearly at the end. No, you cannot put the jug on just yet. Well, you probably can, but I'll never know. I really want to take this opportunity to say thank you. And I'm probably the first chair that's ever really had the opportunity to say thank you at a public meeting like this, because normally the dates don't coincide and they disappear out the back door, and you know, people like me are always heard again, but they're not. So that's the way life goes. So I'm going to take this opportunity. I want to start by acknowledging Tami, and I said to him before I was going to do that, why am I doing that? Because many years ago, before I ever got involved with Trust Waikato, I had a wonderful kama tour that was very important and sacred in my life, called Haere Puki. And then when Haere passed on, I wondered on many an occasion who would replace him. Who could be as good as Haere? That's a very high demand from me. And Tami, you've met that many times. Many times I've come and had conversations with you about what is best to do, what is best not to do, perhaps on occasions, and you've just been an absolute gem. I can only say in the smallest of possible words, thank you so much. Thank you for your friendship, and that won't go away. Tami, thank you. I want to acknowledge the 3 other trustees who are finishing in the next week. Carolyn, Alan, and Bill. You've been great colleagues around the table. You've all brought your own view of the community. It's all been valid. And I've really enjoyed the thinking and the challenging that has been brought to the table. Without that, we would not have grown. I also have come to appreciate you as friends, and I know that doesn't disappear because we finished being trustees. But I will say this about being on Trust Waikato for 8 years. If you don't grow in that time, you haven't been on the trust. You've just been a passenger. And we've not had passengers, we've had very active leaders. I want to say thank you to the other board members, to the newbies and the not so newbies. You're privileged. I remain slightly envious, to be quite candid, but the time has come to move. But to you all, it's a wonderful opportunity to keep going forward. I look back 8 years and think, my goodness, how far we've come on that time. And I'm looking particularly at community and thinking, we're more engaged with community now than ever, and it's more real. And that's really what it's about. And asking the fundamental question, what can we do for you? Not what we know is what's best for you. That's hopeless. And we don't do that at all. And this group of people around here, the staff, the leadership of Dennis, is all about the other person. And if we're not about the other, then what are we about? So I want to thank the staff. I want to start by thanking Dennis. I'm chair of 3 boards, and he probably doesn't know I've said this, but I'm going to say it publicly and have it recorded. All the chairs that I work with are outstanding. I'm such a privileged chair, and Dennis is one of those. Without exception, he is outstanding. He's brave. He's a thinker. He's got an ethical base you can't question, and he's there for the greater community. Dennis, in a simple word again, as I said to Tami, thank you. Thank you. To the staff, they're a professional crowd, but you've got a great sense of fun. Either that or you put up with my humour, or both. But I just want to say thank you. I've never not felt welcome, and I'll probably turn up as I do. But anyway, I just want to say thank you. You've kept the wheels turning and turning in the right direction rapidly. Finally, to the community, if you weren't there, we would not be here. And you are the core, wherever you might be, whether it be the farthest points, speaking from Hamilton, of the Coromandel, or Te Aroha, my old stamping ground when I was born there, or Tamanui, or the east and west coast, wherever it is, you are the key. And always take the opportunity to connect with Trust Waikato, connect with them to inform them. There may be times you may not get what you're hoping to get immediately. Just keep informing, it'll come. To those particular groups that I've been privileged to serve, and I want to acknowledge Trust Waikato as a chair of Child Matters and Kotahitanga Pacifica, you've given me strength as well. I thank you. So in conclusion, it's been a privilege. It's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun. It hasn't been without challenges, but there, as I say, if you don't have those, you don't grow. And to everybody around here tonight, both in the boardroom, on the Zoom, and any other places you might be when you pick it up, every blessing, every thank you, and I look forward to hearing how you're progressing in time to come. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Tami again. I think we're on.
Kia ora, and thank you very much for your kind words to the team and to our community. Edgar, wonderful to be down here as part of the team with the Ora Waikato, Trust Waikato. Lovely to be down here and to be with our Manu Kahui, Paula, and all the team that are looking our beautiful community in this part of the world. Before I close, I just want to acknowledge the wonderful work that our police service is doing to try and locate that young man just straight out in front of us here on the Waikato River. All our aroha from our team here to that family who wait while they search for that young man in the Awa Waikato. So our love goes out to that family, all our aroha to you, and we hope that we will see that young fellow return to his family. Nō reira e tātua kaharawa koe nei mātou o ponoa e koropiko nei mua I tō aroaro. E nei te mihi atu kia koutou e whakarongo mai, e titiro mai kia mātou. E nei mātou e mihi ana kia koutou hoki. E te atua hāpai mātou te iti me te rahi. Te tutuki I ngā moe a mai te rangi ki te whenua. Anā ki te rā o ngā whānau. E kimi ana, e rapu ana I tō rātou nei mokopuna. Koe nei mātou e tuku whakamoe me te rungi te ingoto mātou kai whakaora. O ake, pai mārire kia koutou. Amen. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tāko tāko e. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tāko tāko e. Apiti hono tātai hono koutou te honga mate kia koutou moe mai. Apiti hono tātai hono tātou te honga ola. E piri nei kia tātou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Thank you.